Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Straight Up with MS and all its crazy little circles here on MS&Me Radio, brought to you by the MS Global Support Network. I'm your host, Patty Long, and you can find me at MSing It for Life on Twitter, and I spell that MSENIT, the number 4, LIFE. And that's just because MS is a lifelong disease. There is no cure for it, so that's the name I picked. And, that's despite the fact that I am healing. When I went to the hospital, apparently having a carport collapse on you cures MS. Yeah. Ain't that that would be great, Let's pass that fake cure around. Because they wrote on the radiologist who read the MRI, he wrote on the report that MS was possible based on patients' history or patients' reported history. So based on what I said, in other words, that it was possible that I had MS. And I have to laugh at that because I know what I've been through. And I know I have MS. And I saw my MS doctor, Dr. English, in Atlanta on Tuesday. And that was something that I was really looking forward to because I had a lot of things going on and stuff that I wanted to talk to him about. And the last time that I saw him, he threw me for a loop, and that was that. I couldn't tell him a thing after he threw me for a loop, So he asked me to write down during the time that I had between appointments to write down whatever symptoms I had on a, semi-frequent basis. I didn't need to write down every tiny little detail, but to write down enough so that he would have an idea of what was still left and going on, because it is true that my lesions on Tecfidera with the physical therapy have been healing and shrinking. And because of that, as they shrink, and in the way that MRIs work, they can only see to, so far in, and they can only see to a certain size. So those lesions are still there, but they're itty bitty, and then there's workarounds. I have all these workarounds for what is left, and we haven't done an MRI of my spine in a long time, but the last time I did have one, it was solid white. So there's lesions in my spine, but that's beside the point because there's always workarounds. You've got all these connections, and they're called synapses if I said the word right. I think I said the word right. Did I say the word right? I'm so excited. I might have said the word right. But there's all these synapses in your brain, okay? And there's like 50 million plus by the time you're an adult. And, you made them the whole time you were growing up as you learn new things. But there's room to make more. So just make more and work around the bad spots. And that's basically what I've done. I've worked around the bad spots and worked around the bad spots and worked around the bad spots and retrained through the physical therapy who got me on the right track and kept me on the right track to get to where I needed to go. And it really worked. It worked well. And it's working for my friend, Lori Cabral. And she lives in California. And she sees Dr. Kinkle out there, who is awesome. And she has primary progressive MS. She has been in a wheelchair for I don't know how many years. She is now on the medication, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's for primary progressive MS, the only one out there for it. And she's in physical therapy, and you know what? She's walking. And she saw her doctor yesterday, and she's improving. She's improving too. And I'm so excited because, she's improving too. And so my MS is improving despite the fact I still have MS. And despite the fact that the hospital was like, well, MS might be possible based on what the patient said, but, I'm not really seeing it. She's got 2 lesions here. And my first MRI, my second MRI, my third MRI, my fourth MRI, each one of those said MRIs too numerous to count, and we're all solid white. So this is a humongous improvement that I've made just over, the time that I have been with Dr. English in Atlanta. So anyways, he had asked me to keep this list and to create this list. And so I separated it into 2 groups, and I left a couple pages in between, and I put cognitive and then I put physical. And boy, did I have a lot of things under the cognitive. I had front and back on the pages of physical things, but I had and one of those, the dizziness part of it and the off balance part of it, he said was really cognitive for me. It's not always, but he said for me it was. And he said he thinks that the majority of my cognitive issues are because of the tumor. Because, I had this huge meningioma. Now, my husband says, well, it wasn't on the inside of your brain, so, it didn't hurt the inside of your brain. Well, if I had had a huge knot that was sticking out my forehead, way out my forehead, then that might have been true. But I didn't. It went inwards and upwards, and it was behind my eyebrow. So it affected the optic nerve, and it just barely, but it did affect the optic nerve, just a smidgen of the optic nerve. And then it affected my right frontal lobe a lot. It affected Oh gosh, I forgot the name of the lobe again. The little bitty one that's in the center. that that holds all your instincts, and everything goes through that section of your brain, which is probably why I can't think of it. But and then I think it was the temporal, maybe, that it affected. So, it affected like 3 lobes, and it what it did, because it was outside the blood brain barrier, is as it grew, it shoved its way up through there and basically gave my brain a wedgie. Now, in doing this, it smushed the brains that should have been there. All of those gray matters, white matters, whatever they kind of matters there were supposed to be in there, got smushed. And that is very evident on the MRIs. So, now I have this ginormous black hole, and there's a little bitty bubble in it. Now, why I didn't have enough fluid in my spine to fill the black hole, because that's what it would fill with, is your cerebral spinal fluid, the CSF. So it didn't fill completely up. There's a tiny little bubble in it. And I think that tiny little bubble might be part of the reason why I feel like a bubblehead half the time, And I wear a bandana because that kind of helps to, it feels like it holds it some, because it's right there at the front of my head. Anyways, so he thinks that most of my cognitive problems are because of this tumor and the smushed brains. And my smushed brains are kind of coming back into the black hole some. And I told you all that a long time ago, and I was really excited about that. But they're the wrong color. When you look at the MRI and you see the color of the rest of the gray matter and you see the color of this, they're definitely the wrong color. So I don't know if that part will function correctly or not. So we talked about that, and he's going to send me for cognitive testing. Now, I had to laugh when he asked me. He said, "Do you want to pick a place in Spartanburg to get this done?" And I looked at him. I said, "Oh, I wouldn't trust them to know what they were doing, or to get you the report, or to get me in, or any of it." And I said, "I would rather go to your people." And he said, "Okay." He said, "We'll do that." I said, "Because I don't mind coming back down." So he's going to be setting me up for that. And when I was checking out, as I was checking out, the girl there told me that usually that involves a sleep study as well. And that would be really awesome, because I do have problems sleeping. And most of us do, and a sleep study is a good idea for us. And it's just not something that I've ever really asked about, because I've had bigger concerns than how much sleep I get, and I work on that. And I actually sleep better when I get more exercise in. And y'all, exercise doesn't have to be boring. Exercise can be fun. I mean, think about being a little kid. Think about being a little kid. When you were a little kid, did you call it exercise when you went outside and played with your friends, or did you call it playing? I called it playing. So, make your exercises play. You know, I have a dog, so I play with my dog. And I've got a swing set out here. Now, my wonderful husband, I say this sarcastically because he's not been so wonderful lately. But, in any case, he doesn't want anybody by the swing set because he's afraid this limb that's been stuck in the fork of a tree for, I don't know, 8 months now. He's afraid it's going to fall. So he doesn't want anybody to play over there. And this thing's, way up in the tree. And it's hung and it's hung good because it didn't come down in the snow. It didn't come down in any of the winds because we've had a lot of wind and we now have a wind tunnel. So, it hasn't come down, but I have that swing set, and it's a wooden, built one with the A-frame and all that, and different things that I can do on that, and it's fun. It makes the exercise fun, and then, knowing when to stop. As soon as your form is even a slight jiggle, that's when it's time to stop, because otherwise you're going to either get hurt, or you're going to get exhausted, or you're going to end up going backwards, or all three. And so you don't want to do that. You want to stop the second something about what you're doing, that form is not correct. That's when you want to stop. And, it works, y'all. I mean, if Lori can do it and I can do it, then I feel like we all should be able to do it. Now, maybe that's not true, but, depending on our different health situations. And I think it's also key that we're not overweight, because we're already lifting heavy limbs when we get started doing these things. And so if we're overweight, that makes it even worse. And, diets help, but diets are as individual as we are. There is no one perfect diet out there. You got to find what works for you and what makes you feel your best. And, if you need to lose weight, what helps you lose weight. My husband right now is trying to do carb free, but he doesn't do carb free really. But he has lost some weight. He hasn't lost anywhere near what his goal is at this time, but he's getting there. And these kinds of things take time, so give yourself time. But back to my doctor's appointment, because I'm circly. My brain is circly, and that's something that we talked about too. And here I am trying to follow a list in the doctor's office, and he's asking me questions, and I'm circling. So he also asked me about the eye infection, and we talked about that. And he asked me about the seizure event that I had, and we talked about that. And he said, that's 2 of them now, isn't it? And I said, yeah. I said, this one was in October and the other one was in May. And I had that written down in my notebook as well, so I would know when they were, because I knew he would want to know. And being prepared for these appointments really helps, y'all. Having a notebook, and I have a notebook that I write in and journal in and doodle in and do all this stuff in. So that was just a matter of putting it in a notebook way far for the future, because I go through like one a month. But in any case, so we started talking about the seizures. And I have started a new medication that he said was originally designed for pseudobulbar. Did I say that right? Pseudobulbar effect, where your emotional response is incorrect. Like, say something is super sad and you start laughing. And that's an inappropriate response, right? I would be upset, if I told somebody something really unhappy, and I was really upset, and they started just, laughing. That would kind of be inappropriate. So, anyways, that's what it was originally designed for, but they found out very quickly, I guess, that it was great for controlling seizures. And it doesn't get processed through the liver, and my liver enzymes have been high. So, I'm not really sure what's going on with that yet, but they did do another blood test to check my liver enzymes. But he put me on this medication, and it's one that you have to step up. And hopefully, it will work for me and prevent the next seizure that on that 5-month schedule would be due in like March, So, and he also said that it might help some with my cognitive skills, and that's really exciting to me. Now, yesterday, and see, and this is crazy. I remember yesterday. I remember talking to Lori yesterday about her doctor's appointment. I remember talking to my mama yesterday, and her saying something had been since Christmas, and me saying, well, yeah, and that was about 2 weeks ago, and I said it right off the bat. I had just looked at my watch, so I did know what the date was, but I figured it up that it was just 2 weeks ago, and oh my gosh, I haven't been able to do that in forever, because I'd be sitting there going, okay, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no way that I could have just off the top of my head said 2 weeks and been right. I even checked it in the calendar after I got off the phone with her, and yeah, I was right. It was 2 weeks and 1 day. And that to me was just absolutely amazing that I was right. And there was some other things about my cognition that had changed, and I was just on my first, I'd just taken it once the night before, because you take it at night to start with. So I'm really excited that this might help some with these cognitive issues, because I know they're bad. And, I told him too that I have a tendency to, if I get excited, I get super excited. And, I don't have a volume control level. I don't know that I'm talking super loud. And I don't, it's just, I don't know. I don't realize. It's beyond my comprehension. Just like, how long has it been since I did this or that? I have no idea, if it's been 5 minutes or 6 hours. It's easier if I'm outside because, the sun moves. So I can kind of tell that it's been a couple of hours and not a couple of minutes based on the sunshine, if I remember where the sun was. But he thinks this medication might help some with my memory. So I'm really, really excited about that. He also thinks it might help some with my control of things like excitement and volume and just emotional responses. I told him I have really good control over anger, but I know my tools. I know to walk away. I know not to let myself get too stressed out. I know not to keep trying if I get to a certain point of frustration, to just walk away and give up or ask for help or whatever, but it's not easy to walk away in those situations, especially since I'm home alone a lot of the time. So there isn't somebody to ask for help. And you want to do whatever it is. But if it's frustrating me, I have learned that, okay, when I get to this level of frustration, I've already tried. Now it's time to leave it alone and go do something else and then come back to it. So I do handle those kinds of things. But the happy stuff, that I might go overboard. But, can you really be too happy? Can you? I don't know. But it is time for me to say goodbye. So, I hope y'all are having a great new year. But I did want to tell y'all my good news about my doctor's appointment. And I will catch y'all next week. Love you guys. Thank you for listening. And thank you, Erica, for such a great station. Have a great week. Bye. Oh, no, don't say bye. I can't say bye. Oh my gosh, I didn't tell y'all. Y'all have to smile big. And smile often. And laugh a lot. All the time laugh a lot. And most importantly, do what? Love yourself. And love your whole entire self. Including your funky MS'd up parts. Now it's time to say bye.